All right, welcome back, guys, for another mini lesson. This mini lesson today is going to be geared towards my 8th graders. We're going to take a look at mechanical and electromagnetic waves. All right, so our learning objective for today, we are going to identify the characteristics of electromagnetic and mechanical waves. So we're going to start off with just a simple definition of what a wave is, because in order for us to even remotely start to understand or gain a better understanding of the two groups of waves or the two different kinds of waves, we have to know what a wave is. So our scientific definition for a wave is rhythmic disturbances that carry energy without carrying matter. Okay, so once we take a look at the first category of waves, which is mechanical waves, we will gain a better understanding of what waves mean in science. So for a mechanical wave, these are waves that need matter to transfer energy. And if you look right here at the slide, you'll notice that in parentheses, I have the word medium. Now, I'm not referring to clothing size medium, but medium is another word for matter, or it can be another word for matter. Basically, the medium is what the wave needs, or what the mechanical wave needs in order to transfer energy. So right here on the slide, I've listed some examples of what a medium could be when we are dealing with mechanical waves. So first, and the biggest, most common example would be air. So everything in the atmosphere around us, mechanical waves can transfer energy by traveling through the air or using the air as its medium. Then you also have water. So when you think about waves, when you're at the beach, those would be considered mechanical waves. The energy is being carried through the water. Particles can transfer energy as well, strings. And what I mean by strings is like, for example, like a slinky. I know a slinky is not necessarily a string, but even if I know, when I think back to like my elementary school days, especially like during field day or any recess, anytime when we were outside, we would have jump ropes, and we would take the jump ropes, and I wish I had a string right now. I kind of have a string, hold on. We would take this rope, and we would kind of, like create like a wave. Oh, you can't even see it, sorry. But yeah, you would create like a wave type of thing with the string. So that's why I use that example. Solids can transfer energy, liquids and gases as well. Those are our 3 states of matter. So that's what a medium is. Anytime you hear me use that word, that is what I'm referring to. So examples of mechanical waves, I gave you a pretty good one, and that is when you're at the beach and you see the waves crashing onto shore. That's an example of a mechanical wave. You also have sound waves, which sound waves, the medium for that would be air, because the sound waves travel through, the atmosphere or what's around us. You also ripples in water. So if you've ever been to a lake and you have a pebble and, you skip the pebble on the top of the lake, or you throw a pebble and it drops, you're going to see ripples in the water. So that's a very good example as well. You also have earthquakes. So for those of you that were probably wondering, well, how does energy transfer through a solid? Earthquakes would be a really good example of that, because at the epicenter of an earthquake, the seismic waves is what they are called. Those travel through Earth and to Earth's interior. And along its journey, it's not traveling 100% through solids, because, you do have the mantle and the outer core, and not all of these are composed of solids. So yeah. And then you also, I thought this would be a fun example to give, is the wave that's done at sporting events. If you've ever been to the State Farm Arena or to an Atlanta United game, usually there's a time or a moment where everyone in the crowd or everyone in the stands will participate and stand up in doing the waves. That's where you see it. It'll have a starting point, and then it'll make its way around the whole entire stadium, and everyone just kind of gets up out of their seats and does the wave. So that was a little fun example I wanted to include. So those would be examples of mechanical waves. Now, on the other hand, we have what is called an electromagnetic wave. And this is where the majority of my focus will be placed today, because as I was looking at the reports from this section on edgenuity, I noticed that a lot of you all had a more difficult time understanding the different kinds of electromagnetic waves, as well as how to really look at the electromagnetic spectrum and understand it. So we are going to really focus on these kind of waves, because I feel like mechanical waves are pretty cut and dry and simple to understand. So yes, an electromagnetic wave is pretty much like the opposite of a mechanical wave. They do have some similarities. However, electromagnetic waves do not need matter to transfer energy. So remember, when I was talking about mechanical waves, those needed a medium in order for energy to be transferred, right? Those mechanical waves needed water in order for the energy to be transferred. It needed the air for it to be transferred. So electromagnetic waves, those do not need a medium in order for the energy to transfer. And that might not make so much sense now, but the examples that I've given right here, I think will do a really good job at bettering your understanding. So first example that I always like to use is radiation. Radiation that can occur from the sun that is in our solar system. That can also occur from like cancer patients that are undergoing chemotherapy. They use radiation as well to kill off cancer cells, and so forth. So radiation is a very big or very common example of electromagnetic wave. You also have TV and radio waves, okay? Then you have X-ray, which I feel like this one might be the most popular, because in X-ray, if you've ever broken a bone or if you have anything wrong going on internally that the doctors cannot see with their eyes, they would use an X-ray machine to take a closer look at what's going on inside your body. So for example, again, I just have all these elementary school references today, but when I was in elementary school, I was in the cafeteria, and this sticks out to me because it was probably like some of the most one of the most painful things I've ever experienced. But I was walking in the cafeteria and a kid just decided to trip me, and I kind of stumbled over, but I slammed my foot up against the wheel that is usually at the bottom of the cafeteria table, and it completely shattered my foot, the bone in my foot. And I just thought, oh, I got a bruised foot or something. I don't even think I went home and told my parents. But anyways, what I'm getting at is I went about 2 or 3 weeks without seeing the doctor, and it never got any better. So once I did go into the doctor, the very first thing they did was put me under an X-ray machine to see what was going on. So the X-ray machine, if you ever have had an X-ray done, you know that it does not come in physical contact with your body. It does not touch your skin. It won't touch any part of your body. But somehow it is still able to see what's going on inside. And that is because of these electromagnetic waves. Okay, so they're not traveling through a medium at this point. Microwaves is another one, because you stick your food in the microwave and somehow when you get it out, it's warm. Nothing is in there coming in, making direct contact with your food, but again, when you take it out, it's heated. You have lasers, energy from the sun, like I said, and visible light would all be considered electromagnetic waves. So now let us take a look at the electromagnetic spectrum. So what this is the electromagnetic spectrum. It pretty much illustrates the range of wavelengths and frequencies of these waves. Okay, so I included a really good diagram of the electromagnetic spectrum, and you can see on here, it has the wavelength listed in using meters. It gives you like size reference, so that way you can kind of have a visual understanding of what the size of these wavelengths are. The common names of the wavelengths and sources where these waves, where these electromagnetic waves are most likely to be found. And you also have, sorry, I have my bars blocking. You also on this chart have the frequency, so how many waves are occurring per second, and then the energy, which we're not really too much worried about this last one, but the important things that we will look at and identify to classify these waves would be frequency, wavelength, size of wavelength, and if needed, the common name. So that is the electromagnetic spectrum. And so what I have, I'm actually going to switch out of I'm actually going to switch out of the PowerPoint right now because I found a passage that does a good job at describing each of these electromagnetic waves that we are most likely to come in contact with at some point throughout our lives. So give me a second to let me pull that up. And then we will take a look if I can find it. Sorry, guys. Okay. And this is a video that we'll watch later as well. But here is a passage that I wanted to read. All right. So the electromagnetic spectrum, and like I said, this is going to break down each of the things that I can expect to see here on the diagram that we were looking at earlier. So the electromagnetic spectrum, visible light can be split into a spectrum of colors from red through the rainbow to violet, but visible light is just one part of the whole electromagnetic spectrum. All the different types of electromagnetic waves travel at the same speed through a vacuum. Now, these are not vacuums that we have at home, but if we're using scientific terms, we would call that vacuum. The waves can be ordered by wavelength. Waves with the shortest wavelengths have the highest frequency and the most energy. Waves with the longest wavelengths have the lowest frequency and the least energy. So when it comes to classifying these waves, guys, this is why that chart that we just took a look at is really important, because on that chart, it has all of my factors. It has frequency, it has wavelength, size, and those two things can help you determine how much energy the wave has. Will it be destructive? Will it be mild? So yeah, that diagram is something that we will definitely, or that can definitely be used as a resource when talking about electromagnetic waves. Okay, so first up, we have what's called gamma radiation. At the very shortest wavelengths, there is gamma radiation. It cannot be seen or felt. It mostly passes through the skin and soft tissue, but some of it is absorbed by cells. Gamma waves have a very high frequency. We use gamma radiation to sterilize surgical instruments and to kill harmful bacteria in food. Used in the right way, gamma radiation can target and kill cancer cells. But in general, exposure to gamma radiation is dangerous as it can make cells cancerous. So gamma radiation is something like I just read, is something that can be useful, especially for like cancer patients. However, if you're receiving too much exposure to gamma radiation, that is when you'll start to see some harmful effects of it. So if you have regular, healthy, growing cells in you, if you are exposed to too much gamma radiation, those cells can turn cancerous. So it can kind of do the opposite of what it is good for, which are the benefits of killing off cancer cells. So yeah, we don't want to ever have too much exposure to radiation in general, especially not gamma radiation. Okay, so next up we have X-rays. X-rays, these have a longer wavelength than gamma radiation. So like gamma rays, they cannot be seen or felt. Okay, so when you're doing an X-ray and the doctor has the X-ray machine, let's say you're doing a chest X-ray and the doctor has the X-ray machine over your chest, you're not gonna feel anything even once it is turned on and they are actively taking an X-ray. You're not gonna feel anything, you're not gonna smell anything, and you're not gonna see anything. X-rays mostly pass through your skin and soft tissue as well, but they do not easily pass through bone or metal. All right, so this is why when you do see your X-ray results, the first thing that you will notice is your skeletal system. Also, if you have ever had surgery at any point in your life and they had to insert like metal rods or pins, you will also see those in the x-ray too. I know sometimes it's pretty funny if anyone has piercings, like body piercings or ear piercings, and your doctor doesn't specifically ask you to take them out, you'll also see those pop up on your x-ray as well. So this is what makes x-rays suitable for medical imaging and for checking metal components and welds for cracks or other damage. Okay, so I think I was saying it earlier, x-rays are very, very beneficial because without them, the naked eye, a doctor's naked eye alone would not be able to see your bones unless, you know, they did surgery, performed surgery and opened you up. But outside of that, they are not able to see your bones. So that's why we need that kind of imaging with the x-rays. All right, so next up is ultraviolet radiation. So far we've talked about gamma radiation. We've talked about x-rays, which is very similar to gamma radiation, but not as harmful. And now up we have ultraviolet radiation. So this is found naturally in sunlight. Okay, we cannot see or feel it, but our skin responds to it by turning darker. Ultraviolet radiation is used in sunbeds or tanning beds, security pens, and in fluorescent lights. Coatings inside the tube or bulb absorb the ultraviolet light and re-emit it as visible light. So ultraviolet radiation, ultraviolet rays, this we receive from the sun's light. Now, especially if you have fair skin, if you're like lighter in skin color, you will know that if you are outside and you haven't applied any sunblock and you've been out there for maybe 4 to 5 hours, when you come back inside, you're going to notice a difference in your skin color. It's not going to be, depending on how often you are outside and what the weather is like, if the sun is shining, you're going to notice changes in your skin color. And that could either be like a darker, more melanated look, or, you know, if you're very, very fair, it can sometimes even turn red. So yeah, that would be like an effect of ultraviolet radiation. Now, too much ultraviolet radiation or too much ultraviolet exposure can also be a bad thing, because I know when I was in school, I would always be told, you know, please always wear your sunscreen when you're outside, especially during the summer. Always wear sunscreen when you're outside, because if you get too much sun, you'll get skin cancer. And I know that sounds very scary, but it is it's the reality of if you are constantly exposed, if you're getting overexposure to these rays, that is one of the downsides of it. So yeah, that's ultraviolet radiation. And then you also have what we know as visible light. This is a light that we can see. All the light we can see, so I'm reading right here under this section. So all the light that we can see fits right here. To remember the colors in order of wavelength, think of a rainbow. Violet has the shortest and red has the longest wavelengths in the visible spectrum. I think there's like a little saying, Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. I'm not sure if I'm missing one, but yeah, I learned that in art class. So visible light, pretty easy to understand, guys. This is a light that we can actually see. So on the electromagnetic spectrum, like I said, gamma radiation, X-rays, ultraviolet radiation, we cannot see that. We don't see that at all. We also don't see infrared radiation or microwaves or radio waves. However, we do see visible light. And so, for example, when we look out into the sky and we see a rainbow, or we see any kind of color from light that we see, would be classified as visible light. Now, infrared radiation, and this you guys might be familiar with, or probably have gotten mixed up with ultraviolet radiation, but infrared is absorbed by the skin and we feel it as heat. It is used in heaters, toasters, and grills. It is also used for television remote controls and in optical fiber communications. Okay, so infrared is, it pretty much goes like hand in hand with heat. I know, I'm trying to think of examples that really would resonate with you guys. I know, for example, if any of you are gamers, and let's say it's a game like Call of Duty or something like that, you can use like that infrared vision, and what you would see is it would pretty much identify bodies by using like a heat sensor. Okay, and you wouldn't see the detail of the person. You would just see like a red blob kind of pop up where they are, because that is picking up on the heat. Okay, that's sensing the heat, and so it's signaling that there is a person right there, if you were like in night vision or something. So that's infrared. Any kind of laser that people might use, that would be considered infrared as well. So yeah. And then we also have microwaves. Microwave radiation has even longer wavelengths. Water and food can absorb microwave radiation, which is how food heats up in a microwave oven. Microwave radiation is also used to transmit mobile phone signals. Microwave transmitters and receivers on buildings and masts communicate with the mobile telephones in their range. So this is how, again, we make phone calls. Let's say, for example, I'm at work in my office right now, and I needed to make a phone call to my mom, who is about an hour away from me at her job in her office. If not for microwave radiation, I would not be able to do that, because cell phone towers, oops, the light in my room went out. Hold on. Sorry, guys. It's the light in here is motion sensor, which would be a fantastic example of, can anyone tell me? What would that be an example of? I'll give you a little hint. There's a little red, like laser looking color on it. That would be considered infrared. So anyways, back to what I was saying, sorry. But yeah, if not for those microwave radiation, then something as simple as picking up the phone and making a call would not be possible. All right, so after that, then we have radio waves. Radio waves, these have the longest wavelengths of all, okay, which means they have the lowest frequency. They are used to transmit television and radio programs. Some wavelengths of radio waves are diffracted by the ground, which means they can be received behind hills. And some radio transmissions can be reflected off a layer of the atmosphere called the ionosphere. This means radio signals can be sent around the world without using signals. All right, so there are all of the segments that make up the electromagnetic spectrum. Again, we have gamma radiation, X-rays, ultraviolet radiation, visible light, infrared radiation, microwaves, and radio waves. So now that, and this I am going to also include in the mini lesson message that I send out to you all on Genius. I will also include this reading passage just as a quick reference for you all to use while you are completing assignments in this section. So I now want to wrap all of this up by showing, I found this YouTube video. And this guy, he's a science teacher, and he does a really good job at giving examples of the electromagnetic spectrum and the things that we just read about in the passage. So let's take a look at this. Hopefully the audio picks up. I do know that in one of my last mini lessons, the audio wouldn't record. So if that does happen, I won't know until I end the recording. If that does occur, what I'll do is I'll embed this YouTube video also in the message that I'm going to send out on Genius with this mini lesson. I'm going to attach a link for this, and you guys can, again, use that as a resource to look back at as you are working on completing your assignments in this section of Edgenuity. All right, let's take a look. So you notice what he said. If he had brought gamma rays with him to show y'all as an example, we would not be alive. So remember, that was the first one that we talked about, and those are the most harmful or present extreme danger, or will put us at risk of being in extreme danger. All right, so I don't know if you guys remember what I was saying, how I used that like Call of Duty example about like using that night vision looking, like using that night vision. This is exactly what I was talking about. Sorry, that was so much more, I made that so much more complicated than it had to be. But yes, this is what I was talking about. I'm glad that he included this as well. Thermal energy, that's a key word. Thermal energy is, again, that's heat energy. And so that's why I said those infrared, that infrared vision that picks up on the heat that's within our body, because you know our typical body temperature is at least 98.5. So that's warm, that's hot, and that infrared is going to pick up on that, and that is what is allowing us to see. So yeah, I felt like he did a really, really good job. And like I said, I will include this YouTube link in the mini lesson message that's going to get sent out on Genius. I also will attach the PowerPoint that we went through, this one right here, if anyone needs to go back and refer to anything in here. And I have 2 practice worksheets. that I am going to attach as well for anybody that just wants any additional practice with, you know, classifying electromagnetic waves and mechanical waves so you can gain a deeper understanding. So all of that I will send to you guys via Genius. So please check your messenger. I'm hoping to get that sent out by the end of today. It is Thursday, March 24th. So yes, I'm hoping I'll get that out to you guys today. In fact, I will. You'll have that by the end of my workday. And yeah, thank you all for tuning in to today's mini lesson. Remember, if you need me, I am in my LVLC during this time each day from 1 to 3:30. If you need individual tutoring sessions, just send me an email or a quick text and we can schedule that for in the morning time. So again, thank you all for tuning in and I'll see you in the next mini lesson. Bye.